Hey guys, it's Graham. Welcome back to the Midnight Ride. This month I've been reading up on the history of different Christmas carols, one by one, going through and just finding out who wrote these, when did they originate, where they come from, why do we still sing them today. And this reminded me, like this whole process reminded me of a book that I read a couple of years ago. It might have been 2019. It was called Sleigh Rides, Jingle Bells, and Silent Nights. It's a history of not carols so much, but the more recent, like 20th century phenomenon of popular Christmas music. This is by Ronald Lankford. If that name sounds familiar, it's because last year I finished reading a different book by him. Apparently, he's got a skill in researching musical history. He wrote an entire book that's just about the history of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And let me tell you something, like music history can be a pretty dry subject. And I wish that I could say that Ronald Lankford like really brings it to life. He doesn't. We'll say that the quality of his work lies in the thoroughness, we'll say, then of his research. He's just very detailed. He's good at what he does there. But the observation in this Sleigh Rides book is mostly centered on the post World War II years and how Bing Crosby started to usher in this interest in Christmas music. Bing and a bunch of the other guys that were his contemporaries in the 1940s did a lot to kind of revive American culture during and after the war, especially through radio, and not just their music, but radio shows and stuff that they had done. Langford then goes on to talk about like other, whether they were established singers who were performing their own arrangements of existing songs, or the few that had actually composed something of original merit, and he follows that all the way up through the 90s. And the most significant addition to the Christmas canon of popular songs would be Mariah Carey, the song that everybody likes to meme on. I don't think it's a bad song. People talk about it being an earworm or something. It's definitely no Last Christmas or Christmas Shoes or Hippopotamus for Christmas, which I just found out this year was written by a lady right here in Oklahoma. Like, those are all songs that I just, like, nobody can stand them. Whereas the Mariah Carey one, like, it's catchy, it's poppy, it's good in that way. But, and this is kind of the same conclusion that Lankford comes to, my problem with songs like that is like they fit for the season, I guess, like to an extent, but they don't really do a whole lot to capture what Christmas is about. This is where the enduring value of the Charlie Brown Christmas special comes in, with Charlie Brown all the way back in 1965 saying like, hey, I'm not really into Christmas lately. Everybody's focusing on the wrong things. And then Linus gets up at the community play and recites the account of Luke and says, this is what Christmas is all about, Charlie Brown. People are going to celebrate Christmas for different reasons, and the musical selection that they rely on is going to reflect that. But I think we can also agree that there is a breaking point in the value of that music. A lot of that music then has become kind of cynical, and that's a reflection of just broader and larger American ideas. And the conclusion that Lankford has at the end of the book is that the culture that made mid-20th century Christmas music popular doesn't exist now, not just in the sense that people don't listen to the same kind of music or watch the same kind of TV shows. It's that people don't live the same way that they did at that time. The American family as an institution has largely been destabilized, and it was the American family that kind of kept the true meaning of Christmas going, especially those that were active and practicing in various Christian faiths. So the decreasing popularity, we'll say, of practicing Christianity obviously would then contribute to the decreasing popularity of Christ-centered Christmas music. I think there's definitely room to enjoy the uppity poppy Christmas songs, the Santa Claus stuff, Jingle Bells and Ho Ho Ho, like Lucy Van Pelt says. But the farther we drift from the real meaning of it, I think the less likely we are to find real meaning in it, to find this fabricated, man-made way of saying, like, oh yeah, well, here's this thing that we really feel is beautiful about Christmas. It's the presents and the pageantry, the lights and the colors. Like, all that stuff is aesthetically pleasing, but it's hollow once you start scratching at the surface and digging beneath it and realizing, like, there's not a whole lot here to grasp onto. What does it mean? You know, you take away the core of it, and surprise, there's not a whole lot there. So, in a sense, Lankford has captured sort of a decline, but really a lateral transition away from religious Christmas music into the popular Christmas music, and we're on the tail end of it now. We're outside of that transition in the popular space. Fortunately, the originals, the classics, the 200, 300, 700-year-old carols still exist, and they're still getting arrangements done of them by modern artists today. In the last 40 years, Mannheim Steamroller has branded itself as like the name in Christmas music. Granted, they did other instrumental stuff, but it's their Christmas stuff that really took off. And they brought kind of a late 20th century new vitality to these classics that people can appreciate with a modern sound, but that still have that solemnity and that focus that the original carols had. Trans-Siberian Orchestra landed on the map in the late 1990s with their heavy metal riffs and their stylistic mashups. Their version of Carol of the Bells, the track is actually called Christmas Eve Sarajevo 1224, but it's Carol of the Bells. That one got a lot of people's attention because, like, hey, what the heck is going on? Did Metallica release a Christmas album? It sure sounded like it. If you go and listen to full Trans-Siberian Orchestra albums, you can recognize the traditional songs, but you can also appreciate that they do original compositions. All of their albums are stories. There's one album called, darn it, I forgot the name of the album. The first track on there is called An Angel Came Down, and the entire album is about God sending an angel to Earth to check on what people are doing since Christ was born. And there are songs in different styles with different tones. Some of them are happy and energetic, some of them are reflective, and at the end the angel comes back to report on what he found. Now, I think the last Christmas album they released in 2007 was called The Lost Christmas Eve, and the same thing. It's about people trying to grasp onto the meaning of Christmas of yesteryear versus the version of it that we've been fed, which is largely over commercialized. I remember hearing complaints to that effect when I was a little kid, and it hasn't really gotten any better. Finding the meaning in Christmas, especially through music, is going to be a matter of, I think, individual effort until enough individuals do it that it regains, we'll say, widespread popularity. But it can't be a manufactured movement, and I don't think that you can necessarily manufacture it, especially through music. Like, the music can reflect individual efforts to find meaning in it, but it can't be a product that's created and then fed to people and then they find it that way. The thing that I'm noticing as I'm studying these oldest carols, before Bing Crosby, before all of that, we're talking 1800s, 1200s, is that these were the creations of individual composers and students of music who were really trying to find a way to express worship through music at a time when music was like the only way that you could enjoy it was through live performance. There were no recordings, there were no broadcasts. You had to individually put in the effort to perform. Most recently, and this is one of the pieces that's going to come out this week on Substack, most recently I did some research into the history of Silent Night. It was originally an Austrian carol called Stille Nacht, and it was composed to be played on an organ at St. Nicholas's Church in a city that I believe was called Oberndorf, or something to that effect. The problem was the organ broke, and so the composition had to be simplified to be played on guitar. And not everybody had access to an organ, but a lot more people had access to a guitar, and that led to the sheet music being reprinted and proliferated and going early 19th century viral, and more people were able to perform it in more places. But it was still a matter of individual effort. It wasn't just about buying a copy and pressing play. You had to apply individual skill and effort to it. I'm going to close by saying this. The decline in the, we'll say, spiritual side of Christmas worship equates directly to the ease of access to things, the over-industrialization of things, the press a button and get what you wantness of everything. Without that, with a lifestyle that required effort to do anything, to do a hobby, to do work, to just live, people found more meaning. There's a direct equation between effort and meaning. You're not going to put the effort into something if it doesn't matter. Even as much as we don't like our jobs, we do it because we need a place to live and we have families to support, and that's what matters. I think that same equation is applicable to everything else that we're looking at when it comes to Christmas and the music and the pageantry and the decoration and stuff. People get largely fed up with it, I think, when they lose sight of what it means and what it's supposed to mean. I enjoyed having the big, flashy Christmases when I was a kid and getting into the lights and the decorations and the music and all of that stuff. But as I've gotten older, and even back in my late teens, early 20s, I found more meaning in looking backwards and understanding where this came from and really what it's all about. The Linus Van Pelt side of it. Not everybody's going to get there. I understand that I've got a couple of viewers and listeners here that aren't religious or aren't practicing Christians, and they've got maybe their own reasons for continuing on. Sometimes it's just inertia. But just think about that, explore that, and you can look at that through the music as well. As dry as this book was that Lankford wrote, you can see the progression and the regression as the popular music got more popular, but it started to become more manufactured and then ultimately started to lose sight of why all of this exists in the first place. You can top the charts with a peppy song, but what's it built on? Mariah Carey built a whole song about falling in love at Christmas. Lady, that's Valentine's Day. Hallmark sells us Christmas romances, and that's fine, but there's a reason that they sell you the same cheap thing over and over and over and over again to distract you from the fact that it's kind of all hollow and pointless unless you're able to look deeper and understand the reason why we do all of this. Anyway, kind of going in circles now, so I'm going to let you go. I'm at work. It's 11:15. Got in early. Monday magic. Y'all drive safe. See you out there, and Merry Christmas.